Good morning, everyone. My name is Chantel T. Grimaldo, and together with Ms. Kathriene FRANCICA, we will be reporting Myanmar, the Golden Land. So let's start. So Myanmar, officially called as the Union of Myanmar, is the 10th largest country in Asian continent and the largest country in Southeast Asia by area with 676,578 square meters. So Myanmar is formerly known as Burma. And Burma, it comes from the Burmese word Bamar, which is the local word for Myanmar. So both words refers to the majority of the population being a Burman people. And since the British colonial times, the country has been known as Burma. However, in 1989, the military government changed a lot of English translations, including the country's name. So from Burma, it became Myanmar. So today, the countries and the world organizations have decided their own which name to use for the country. So for example, in United Nations, they calls it Myanmar. But most of the English-speaking countries like USA or UK, they calls it Burma. So Myanmar, it borders the 5 nations, namely the India, Bangladesh, Thailand, Laos, and China. Myanmar's geography is typically made up of thick tropical rainforests, tall mountains, and surging river valleys. When it comes to their mountains, they have the Himalayan mountain. So it ranges the surprisingly steep into the north of Myanmar. And in this physical map, if you look at this physical map, it is above the yellow triangle, which is the country's highest point, the Kakaborazi. So it is mostly run from north to south direction and gradually rises from the sea level at the river deltas of the Irrawaddy and Sitang River to Mount Kakabo in the north. So when it comes to the rivers, they have the Irrawaddy River. So this river system dominates the country, and this mighty river is responsible for giving Myanmar countless valleys and the river's massive deltas in the south. And the low-lying floodplains in the south are the ideal place to grow crops. So most of the largest cities and towns can be found along the banks of the Irrawaddy River, like Myitkyina, Bamo, Mandalay, Muniwa, and including their capital city, Danay, Bidao. When it comes to their archipelago or scattered islands, they have the Mergui Archipelago. So these islands are located just off the southern coast of Andaman Sea and Indian Ocean. So these bodies of waters gives Myanmar access to global trade. However, this does come at a cost because each year the nation is wrecked by a devastated monsoons. Myanmar has 7 states, 7 regions, and 1 union territory or their capital. So the 7 regions are Ayeyarwady or the Irrawaddy, Bago, Bagulay, Mandalay, Sagaing, Tanintari, and Yangon. However, their states are Chin, Kachin, Kayan, Mon, Rakhine, and Shan. And their 1 union territory or their capital is the Nai Pidao or the capital city of Myanmar. The official language of Myanmar is Burmese. It is also the most widely spoken language in the country. So Burmese, a Sino-Tibetan language, is the mother tongue of millions of Mamar people who speak it as a first language. It is also spoken by the other minority ethnic groups in Myanmar, and it is related to the Chinese and Tibetan languages. So Burmese script was developed in the 5th century, and 32 million people speak Burmese as their first language, and there are 10 million people as their second language. So aside from the official language, Myanmar has also indigenous languages. There are 4 types of indigenous languages that we will tackle today. The first one is the Shan. So Shan is the native language spoken by the Shan people. So, but it's also spoken by some parts of Burma's Kachin state. Yeah, so it belongs to the Tai Kadai language family, and approximately there are 3.2 million people who speak the Shan language. Number 2 is the Karen languages. So it is a tonal languages spoken by the Karen people of Myanmar. So it is classified into 3 primary branches, the Po, Kao, and the Pao. So the languages are written using the Burmese script. And number 3, we have the Kachin. So it is a significant number of people of the Kachin state that speak the Kachin or Jingpo language, which is a member of the Sino-Tibetan languages. And there are 900,000 people or 900,000 ethnic that speak the Kachin language in Burma. And last is Mon. So Mon is a Austroasiatic language spoken about 750,000 Mon people living in Myanmar. So there are only significant section of the Mon people, and those are the monolingual in Burmese. Going back to the past, Myanmar's early history is dominated by the successive rule of several different Burman dynasties. So there are 3 Burman dynasties. The first one is the Bagan dynasty. So during their rule, Theravada Buddhism rose in Burma, and the large cities with pagodas and Buddhist monasteries was built along the Irrawaddy River. However, the Mongols, they destroyed the city in 1287, and they took full control over the area. So the number 2 is the Tangbo dynasty. So it is another dynasty that regained control of Myanmar, and they established a large multi-ethnic kingdom that was still focused on the Mongols' territory. So they lasted from 1486 to 1752. And then number 3 is the Konbaung. So the Tangbo dynasty was replaced by the Konbaung. So it is the 3rd and final dynasty in Burma. So during the Konbaung rule, Myanmar underwent into several wars and was invaded by China 4 times and 3 times by the British. And the British gained full control of Burma after annexing it to British India. So in World War II, there was a 30 comrades. So these comrades are the group of Burmese nationalists attempted to drive out the British. But in 1945, the Burmese army joined the British and US troops in an effort to force out the Japanese. So after the World War III, Myanmar again pushed for independence, and in 1947, a constitution was completed, followed by full independence in 1948. So from 1948, they had a democratic government, but there was a widespread of political instability that's going on within the country. So in 1962, military coup established military government. So they took over Burma. So throughout the 1960s, 70s, 80s, Myanmar was politically, socially, and economically unstable. So in 1990, parliamentary election took place, but the military regime refused to acknowledge the results. So during the early 2000s, the military remained in control of Myanmar despite several attempts for overthrow and protests in favor for more democratic government. So let's proceed to their culture, arts, and religion. So the main religion in Myanmar, with 89% of population, is Buddhism. So it has a great influence to the Burmese people. Monks are respectful throughout the country, and Buddhist pagodas, temples, and monasteries can be found everywhere, from small villages to major cities. And most festivals are related to Buddhism, like the Pagoda Festival, that includes temporary bazaars, entertainment, and religious ceremonies. And one of the popular Pagoda Festival is the Pong Tao Festival, which is celebrated in September and October. So it includes boat races, folk performances, and grand procession of the Buddha. When it comes to their arts, there are various ethnic groups. They have their own forms of expressing arts. So they have the silver jewelry of Jingpo people, flowery headdresses of women in Malaya Hill tribe, Kaya people and their music sessions, people as well as their music, the Shan and their cuisine, and the most famous is the Padaong people with their braces ring. So they long-necked women that stretch their collarbones to give up the images of the long neck, traditionally seen as a sign of beauty. So when it comes to their education, Myanmar's language of instruction or the medium of instruction they use is Burmese as their first language and English as their second. So they have monastic schools which offers free education, especially in rural areas. So providing both secular and religious education. And last is the private schools. So these private schools, they had an increased number of the private institution in the country. So where they offer alternative curricula and international programs. So that would be all for my part. So the next part will be reported by Miss Francisca.